Hello friends, Patrick here again. I got a new book review for you today. The book is called Knocking on Heaven's Door: How Physics and Scientific Thinking Illuminate the Universe and the Modern World by Lisa Randall, best-selling author of Warp Passages. Beautiful book, nice hardcover. It's hefty at over 400 pages. I thought I'd show you the cover. It's a beautiful cover. If I take the sleeve off, you get a beautiful picture of the universe. Looks like the latest James Webb images that we're seeing frequently today in the news, this new telescope that they have, so that's kind of cool. Picked this up at a thrift shop, regular price $33 for $3, so that's great. I'm very thankful to be able to find good deals on books out there. Now, quickly, I'll just show you the intro. Is Lisa Randall, and this is what I was talking about in the last book. You see, the last book that I did, The Mind of God by Paul Davies, he was so humble, he didn't include one of these biographies. So the biography for Lisa Randall says she studied theoretical particle physics and cosmology at Harvard University, where she is the Frank J. Baird Jr. Professor of Science, no less. Wow. Her work has made her among the most cited and influential theoretical physicists today. Has been featured in Discover, The Economist, Newsweek, Scientific American, and many top-rated scientific journals. She's one of Time Magazine's 100 most influential people and Rolling Stone's RS 100, Agents of Change. Wow, talks about her first book. She's a member of the National Academy of Sciences, American Philosophical Society, American Academy of Arts and Sciences. When not solving the problems of the universe, Randall can be found rock climbing, skiing, or contributing to art-science connections. Her libretto for Hypermusic Prologue premiered at the Pompadour Center in Paris in 2009. I don't know what that means, but libretto? Maybe she's a singer? I don't know. So quite an impressive resume. I mean, wow. This person can essentially walk on water. So that's pretty cool. Book was published about 10 years ago, 11 years ago, 2000 and, what did I say, 2009, 2010? Copyright 2011, sorry. So just 11 years old, just over 10 years old, not still quite current. And I've dug into it a little bit. I've gone through the preface and up to chapter 3. So I am only 50 pages deep. But already it's unfortunately quite disappointing. In her introduction, she is indignant, mentions that she saw a biblical quotation when she visited the White House, of course, and she was there was a House Committee on Science and Technology in one of the White House rooms, and there was an inspirational plaque, and she says that it seems American government must refer to Scripture even in the congressional room explicitly dedicated to science and technology. So her nose is out of joint because she went into this room that's supposed to be dedicated to science and technology, and it has a Bible quote in there that says, when there is no vision, the people perish. That's from Proverbs 29. And so she didn't like that at all. And that gives you a hint of the motivation of Lisa Randall. Unfortunately, she is an anti-Christian, quite obviously, and she makes that very well known very quickly in the book. So she starts off, chapter 1 is called What's So Small to You is So Large to Me. And in this first chapter, she calls out Mike Huckabee. Mike Huckabee was is an American politician. He's a Republican. He could have become president of the United States. He was a Republican candidate to run for the presidency at one time. And she describes him as being not, what did she say here? Not entirely misguided. Because because he Yeah, that's how she describes him. I mean, Mike Huckabee used to be a Baptist minister, right? And so he put more faith in his Christian beliefs because they were essentially unchanging, and as opposed to science, which is changing all the time as new knowledge is gained. And she pulled this out of his argument. Doesn't give him a chance to speak for himself, of course, but infers that he is misguided by thinking that way. So she opens up her first chapter by putting down a well-known Christian for placing too much emphasis on his Christian beliefs rather than her claim to fame, which is of course science. And she goes on to describe them as being essentially diametrically opposed. And every time she compares them, she always puts down religious thought as being inferior and incompatible with science. She doesn't leave much room for, even though she mentions often, well, some people have the ability to incorporate science, but they have to be very flexible in their interpretation of scripture. They have to be very open-minded. Maybe they can be a little bit spiritual, but anything beyond that, you're not allowed to have that if you're going to be a scientist, according to her. That's the theme that runs through the first 3 chapters of the book. So chapter 1, what's so small to you is so large to me. And then she's talking about the small size of photons in this chapter. Well, the thing is, she mentions right away that in the first chapter that science still hasn't been able to reconcile the different aspects, the different characteristics of light, that it acts like a particle and it acts like a wave. If you remember your high school physics class, they haven't changed teaching that same thing to this day. Light acts like particles in some ways, and it acts like waves in other ways. In other ways, pardon me. I believe it has something to do with the relationship of time to the characteristics of light. That because time, we view light in a time-based reality. This is why it appears to us with these unusual characteristics. That's just my own personal 2 cents on the matter. But she admits that science has been unable to recognize or explain fully the characteristics of light. They can explain how it behaves, but they don't know why it behaves with those dual characteristics that would seem to be a bit of a conflict, a mystery, a dilemma. It's certainly a mystery. It acts like a particle and it acts like a wave at the same time. How is that possible? They're unable to answer that question to this day. As I said, I believe that when time stops, that light will be able to there will be no shadows. We're told there's no shadows in eternity, because light permeates everything. It's a timeless type of environment. Whereas here, because we're in time, we have shadows. I could explain that in another video, but I'm not going to try and bore you with my own personal beliefs. I just want to share with you what she's talking about. So that's the first chapter. What's so small to you is so large to me. And she explains that she's involved in small research of very tiny things, which is what the Hadron Collider, those type of CERN, the European, those big colliders are involved with very tiny particles, right? Chapter 2, Unlocking Secrets. She talks about how she was celebrated and feted and given a wonderful celebration to travel to Padua in Italy with a bunch of prominent scientists, Stephen Weinberg, Stephen Hawking, Ed Witten, and she got the key to the city, and they said how wonderful she was. She toured Pisa, Florence, Venice. She went and went on a tour that described everything about Galileo. And she goes on, and in chapter 2, she explains how wonderful Galileo was and is, and how he was able to bring new scientific discoveries in spite of the friction that he experienced with the Catholic Church at the time, and how his scientific way of thinking advanced a lot of new discoveries about how the our universe works. And that's an interesting chapter. So she goes all through that. And then chapter 3, living in a material world, this is where she really starts to uh, push her belief that science and religious thought are incompatible unless one is greatly diminishes their interpretation of Scripture. This is what her particular belief is, and she gives examples of that, and she tries to put down people that she's met who have Christian belief in particular. She definitely takes a target at Christian belief, and even more so the Catholic Church, which is pretty much an easy target. But be that as it may, she goes on to promote her view that science does not leave any room for the mystical, doesn't leave any room for a deity to interfere in our reality, which of course we know is false. And she makes some statements that are seen that I'll find one here for you that she brings up, that science is she says science searches for the most economical interpretation that can explain and predict all observations. Well, we know that's false because of some of the theories that Stephen Hawking came up with are more complicated than were the original Big Bang theory that was just based on a singularity. They had to complicate it and make it more, more options to remove the idea of a deity. Similar with the multi-universe theory. The multi-universe theory is much more complicated than a theory of just one universe, right? They say, oh, there could be an infinite number of universes. Well, that doesn't satisfy Occam's razor. It doesn't satisfy the statement that she makes. She says that science searches for the most economical interpretation that can explain and predict all observations. She mentions in page 37, that's a false statement. That's not true. Science often overcomplicates things. I mean, sometimes they circle back around, to quote a popular person today. Sometimes they come back down and get rid of those complicated theories, but nothing stops scientists from overcomplicating things on occasion. They do that frequently, that we've seen. But I don't want to nitpick too much, but the overall theme is going to make this very painful to get through. As I mentioned, I've gone through the chapter 3 is called Living in a Material World. So I've gone up to page 58. So I'm starting chapter 4 called Looking for Answers. So again, obviously not a humble biography compared to the last book that we did. I'm not going to give her too much of a hard time for that, but certainly very combative against any type of mystical, religious, or spiritual thought, and definitely blowing her own horn and touting science as the be-all and end-all for discovering our reality or explaining our reality or learning new insights about how the world works, how we work, where we came from, etc., etc. Her belief is that science is the only true way to discover truth, and she tries to belittle anything related to religion, and in particular the Christian religion. So yet another anti-Christian book that I have found, but I'll be happy to try and get through it, as painful as I'm expecting it to be, and we'll see if it contains any insights. I'm sure it does. She's obviously a lot more educated than I am, and a lot more talented, and access to a lot more cutting-edge scientific research. So I will try and read it with as humble an attitude as I can muster, seeing that she's got all these fantastic qualifications. So I'm going to try and learn from it as best I can, and keep an open mind, while at the same time realizing that she's obviously coming out of the gate with an extreme level of bias, unfortunately. But thank you so much for watching. That's my first review. If I've gone through 3 chapters, how many chapters do we have in this book? I'll quickly check it out for you and see what we're looking at. We have 22 chapters. So this is going to take me at least 4 or 5 videos to get through all of it. I'll try and be as brief as I can so as not to waste your time. And if I find anything exciting, I will share it with you, and I'll try and leave out the unnecessary parts to make it as efficient and as concise as possible, and try not to drone on so long with these videos. I'll try and keep these videos as short as I can. Maybe I can come up with some short 10, 15-minute videos. I just hit 15 minutes, so I want to keep this as short and concise as I can for you, the viewer. Again, I thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you watching this wherever you may be now or in the future, and I hope it's a blessing to you and an encouragement to you. And if I can share any knowledge that I can distill down and present quickly for you, I will try and do that. That's my promise to you. But I'm able to keep my promise. You know, I like to talk, blah, 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 blah. Thank you so much for watching. I love you very much. I hope you're doing well. I pray God blesses you. I thank you for watching this video, and I hope it's an encouragement to you somehow, somewhere. And let's learn about life together. Let's discover what the truth is together. And let's look at science. Let's look at scripture. Let's look at our own hearts. Let's look at what's happening in the world. And let's put it all together into one great big pizza pie of truth. How's that? Okay, I want to give you a smile, so I'll try and make a joke, okay? I can make a joke once in a while. A pizza pie of truth. How's that? Have a great day. Talk to you again soon. Bye-bye now. Bye. Take care. See you. Bye-bye.